Should broke men date?
Should broke men date?
Broke men date. Not that 20. I'm talking about you like say like after 28.
After 28,
Yeah, should you
should a
even
broke
date?
man date? I don't think so. And it also depends on how you define broke, So meaning
You don't have your own place.
no, he should not be dating because in the maturity continuum, we have dependent, independent, interdependent. So if a man doesn't have his own place, he's a dependent. But in order to be married, he has to be interdependent. But before being interdependent, he has to be independent. So a man's sole focus should be being independent, figuring out a way to earn enough income to pay for a place to stay and to pay for transportation, even if that's the subway, and to pay for his food and his grocery and be able to take care of himself. Lights, water, phone bill, be independent. And it doesn't mean he has to be swimming in cash. It doesn't even mean he has to have an 800 credit score, but he needs to be independent before looking to date because dating costs. Because you got to be able to pay for dinner, pay for the transportation, pay for the outings because it's unfair to be living with somebody and then asking a woman to just do a bunch of free dates walking around the park or just sitting on the phone talking if you over the age of 28, if you over the age of 25. And so what happens is a man who wants to date before he has his own place, before he's independent, that man can go into a place of being a gold digger for a woman where he's looking for a woman he could live off of. It was what the people call a hobosexual. It's like a hobo. You know how they say hobo, meaning a homeless person? They call it a hobosexual. Is somebody who is, they're not looking for love, they're looking for help. They're looking for somebody they could live off of. And there is a large amount of men in our society, and unfortunately, a lot of them are black men because of what we come from and the struggles that we face. And they've been behind the 8 ball since a child, and they're still behind the 8 ball as an adult. And so what they do is they go and they find a woman who has her own. She got her own apartment, she got her own car, and they go live in that woman's apartment and drive her car, and they stay in that place. I could see if you meet and it's an organic connection. So there are exceptions to the rule to where, let's say a man he's living with somebody and he's working, meaning he's ambitious, he's making moves, and he meets a woman in that process. And she likes him, his personality, but he has ambition. He's not standing still. He's moving forward. And they're talking and they're building, but it's organic. It's not like he was intentionally out looking for a woman, looking for a wife.
Can you hold your thought? I just want to ask you this. Please hold your thought so we could continue after this. It seems men and women struggle with identifying ambition for what I would call, I don't know any other word, but like scamming. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people are very good at presenting themselves as progressive when they're not doing anything and people get sucked in.
Mm-hmm. Instead of spending that energy to be the real thing.
Yeah.
Me and my wife was talking about that like last night or the night before, and we were talking about how scammers like could be multimillionaires legitimately if they use the ingenuity that they're using to scam the government, or the ingenuity that they're using to scam other people. Like I have people who steal from my credit cards, steal from my debit cards, and I'm like, I'm holding my card in my hand. How did you get my card number and you're spending it 5 hours away from me? Like, if you're that smart, you could get with some developers and create a tech company that becomes worth $1 billion. And that's the thing, is like, because I would say they got it honest. And what I mean by getting it honest is because of the segregation and the discrimination, and because of the lack of perceived opportunity in the black race, that's when people up north, and you know from your area, like started selling crack, running numbers, all these different hustles. And they're running these hustles because they're saying, I can't go earn what the white man earns. And so from this culture of hustling, and you hustle, you take shortcuts, you get the Benz, you get the BMW, you get all the big gold chains and the big gold rings, and then you get all the loose women. So now this has just been passed down from culture to culture from the 60s or whenever. And today it's the same thing. They're like, okay, I could go work an honest job and I could live off 50% of my income. So I'm basically living like a slave. I'm saving 50%. I could do that for 10 years, buy a property, then flip that property, and then become a owner of 10 different properties like Mr. Johnson. But it's gonna take me 30 years. Or I can go figure out this scam and in 12 months have a Benz and a Beamer like Ace Boogie. Which route do I want to take as a human? And so they take that risk of going to prison, of losing their life to do a scam.
You know what? I wanted to jump back to this woman thing, but I just want to touch on what you just said. You know what happened a lot of time with them? Yes, it's impatience, but it's also confidence. They don't believe they'll be successful long term.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really a cop out. People don't understand how hustling is a cop out a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. The weakest emotion in a man and a woman produces hustlers and scammers. I try to tell people that because I was in the streets, and when I was in the streets, it was for the same thing, a lack of confidence. It was for insecurity. It was for weakness. And when you out there on that side of things, and then you come out and you look back, you realize that the real men are the men who avoided crime. The real men are the men who had the confidence and the strength to do the right thing, even though it wasn't paying off as fast initially as those who were doing the wrong thing. And so all of our gangster rappers are, for lack of a better term, punks, just meaning scared. They're scared, they're insecure, and they're weak. But we've been tricked as black men, especially, to be afraid of them. So we fear the gangster rappers. We fear the guys who are shooters. We fear the hustlers and the thugs. But really, they're the scariest men on the face of the planet.
Soft as tissue, man.
Soft as tissue.
Anyone that's like worked in the school, worked in the prison system or police, they know they soft.
They know they soft.
Now, I want to be clear, because they're scary, they will shoot you if they have a firearm.
They will shoot you.
But it's not done out of toughness, it's done out of fear.
It's done out of fear.
Right,
it's done because they are scared. And that's why we losing so many lives, because of scared people with guns.
All right, I want to jump back, right, with the woman thing. All right, so you said there's a large pool of women out there for men to exploit in regards to living with, right? The question I have is that I know there's an imbalance between the amount of men and women, but is it a situation where there are two things, and I want to hear what you have to say. One aspect, people argue that women are desperate after a certain age, right? I want to hear what you have to say about that. And the other thing too, man, like, it seems like women have this obsession with trying to like create this type of man, like taking a man from nothing and building him up. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, for one, what I've found is a lot of women are desperate from a child. Like, not in the sense of like a 21-year-old she will pass up on guys because she has time, she has options. But she still really, really desires love. And I'm coaching some 21-year-olds who it just kind of, it's mind-boggling to me. I'm like, you have your whole life ahead of you. Why are you dealing with this guy? Like, why are you letting him drag you through the mud? And they're talking to me and still allowing the guy to manipulate them, gaslight them, and drag them through the mud. I'm like, how can you want a relationship that bad when you're pretty, you take care of yourself, you got a job, like you could have any guy?
Is it a situation where I've heard a woman tell me this directly? It was a young lady that got killed, right? And we were just talking about the people she was around. And the older lady was saying that a lot of times they don't feel worthy of a good man. And as my brother would say, they avoid good men. And we could break down what that means, but it's more work. It's more work to have a solid dude, and that's easier work.
Mm-hmm. I think the way I look at it is when they have a man that's disrespectful, when they have a man that's like cutting corners or he's living life on the edge, they see that as confidence. They see that as strength. They see that as bravado. So they equate that to him being able to protect, him being able to provide. So they look at the guy who is a grown boy, who is lost. They look at him as a man because they're deceived just like the world is deceived in believing in the rappers. Whereas the man who has a 9-to-5, he probably would wipe the floor with any thug in a fist fight. And he probably is way tougher, way stronger, way more confident, but because he's quiet, because he minds his business, because he goes to work and does what he has to do, he doesn't have the flash. He doesn't grab the attention. So he's looked at as soft, he's looked at as weak. And that's what's killing our society. That's what's killing us as a people, is we don't understand reality. And our perception is our reality.
It's funny when you say that because the thug or the hustler, whatever, no consistent income, right? Very low likelihood that they'll be around either from death or incarceration. So the support that you need won't be there. But on the other side, with the stability going to what we're seeing again, is seen as boring. But it seems like something shifts as they get older, though. It seems like their lens changes a little bit, not all, some. The stability becomes, or the more stable person becomes more attractive.
Mm-hmm. And that's typically, it becomes more attractive in the idea. So every woman in the comments will say, I want somebody stable. But then when I show them somebody stable, they then will say, he's not tall enough. He's not light enough. He's not dark enough. He doesn't have a hairline. I don't like beards. Or he needs to have a beard. Like, this is what I'm dealing with every day. Like, I'm introducing women to who they say they want in reality, and then they're like, that's not what I want. So it's really, we lack as humans connecting the word to the real, you know, the idea to reality. And it's sad.
That's wild. Is that picky out there?
It's very picky. I have women that I coach that say, Tony, he must have a strong hairline. And I'm talking to these women in their 40s. And I'm like, men start losing hair at 18. I'm like, I don't have a strong hairline. This spray on. And I'm 39. I'm like, I say a man who has a strong hairline at 45, he was 50 pounds at 19. He just developed late. His DNA, his genes, he was so late. I'm like, but a man with a typical amount of testosterone, with a normal amount of testosterone, he's not finna have all of this hairline. And they will say something like, I've coached a woman, she said he must like classical music. And I'm like, why can't you introduce him to classical music? Like, why can't that be something y'all explore and learn, and he learns it and grows into it with you? That's a part of building a relationship.
I know I've been out the game so long and I'm kind of out the loop, right? But I do hear, like, when did people become so picky? Is it the social media? Is it the online? 'Cause I know the online dating's a big thing now too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend, he dates, and he was telling me about this obsession with tall men.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are not a lot of tall men in society to start with.
The average height of a man in America is 5'9". But most women, 90% of women that I've talked to, and I've had over 2,000 coaching sessions, I may be at like 3,000 now, one-on-one sessions, they want a man that is 6 foot tall. So they are asking, so now you have the masses of women asking for a man who is above average, because the average height is 5'9". So they're not even talking about 5'10", like 3 inches above average.
You need to be good looking still.
And still be good looking.
Some bread in your pocket.
And have 6 figures. So that's why I call it the 666. And you end up with a devil on your hand.
So I read an article. It's funny. It ties into what you were saying. They were saying there's a small portion of men that's getting all the women. And it makes sense because the majority of women want this type of men. That's wild, bro.
Yep.
So what happens to the other brothers out there?
That forms the red pill.
I got you now.
That's what forms the red pill. That's what forms MGTOW, men going their own way. That's what forms the manosphere, is the overlooked men. It's just, even when you're looking at like DC, Marvel Comics and DC, the overlooked person is who becomes the villain. The person that was bullied, that was overlooked, that was mistreated, they go into the basement, they create these bionic arms, bionic legs, a huge bomb, and they finna blow up the world because they have been mistreated. That's what the red pill community is.
I will say this, man. I didn't know how privileged, and I say this humbly, right? I didn't know how privileged I was until I started teaching and I was around teenagers again, because, I played sports. I was top 20 playing the state. You're tall. You have your little look. Never had an issue with the ladies. But I didn't realize how many boys are just fully ignored, like their entire, like, their parents don't pay them no mind. Females don't pay them no mind. They never got an accomplishment. And that just seems like majority of men.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sad, lonely reality, you know?
It is sad, man. And that's the thing, is like, women have to understand that. Like, we need mothers to understand that. We need fathers to understand that. And we need women on the dating market to understand that there's more to a man than his height and his look. And our society has done this intentionally. And it's the work of the devil. Because if you can debase the man, demean the man, degrade the man, destroy the man, then the adversary has control over the masses. Because if a man has confidence and he is leading his home, now the world outside, the world at large, the system, they can't have control, because that man has control over the minds of his family. He's training them. He's teaching them. He's leading them. But if you break the man, you break the family. So if you feed the women the image that the only man that is worthy of you is a 6 foot tall man who makes 6 figures,
Who has every option on earth, now you keep women single, because they only get to sleep with those men, not marry those men. They get pregnant by those men, and they have a tall son, but they're a single mom. And that man is out spreading himself thin because every single woman wants him. So now you have a strong, independent single mom who makes money, and she's ripe for the picking by the commercialism. They're taking all of her money. She's living paycheck to paycheck. She's still broke, even though she makes 6 figures, because she doesn't have a covering. She doesn't have a man that she could put her head together with, and they could create a budget, and they could build financial stability, because she's been sold
that the best type of man is this type of man. And all she got from that man is a little bit of sex, but no commitment. And now you have the weak woman who's raising her child. Then you have the broken and confused man who's being overlooked and he's hating women. Yeah. And then you got the man who thinks he is the man, but it has gone to his head and now he's abusing that power and he's just spreading himself thin and never getting married.
I'm glad I came down here, I'm glad I came down here because, no, a serious thing is just like when we break down our situation as black people, we have the internal conflict and we have the outside external, because obviously between education, prison, food, and all that. But from a relationship standpoint, the way the thing is set, it builds so much confusion because, as I said, this group of guys who just feel like left out of everything is a very dangerous and toxic group. One, for the message that they're spreading, and also they're not contributing or even interested in contributing to the development of our people. They kind of like separated themselves. They don't have that association with the development of black people.
That's why it's called MGTOW. Yeah. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Men going their own way. Yeah. That's what it is. It's a broken man. It's a hurting man. It's an angry man. It's an upset man. And he is now going his own way. And that is toxic for society. That is the worst thing that we could do. But that's what a human's response is going to be when they're overlooked, unappreciated, undervalued, disrespected. And so women have done this to them, on top of women who look like them have done this to them, on top of the system, which is maybe the opposite of them, of complexion or race. So now the most dangerous man on the face of the planet is an insecure man. Because who shoots up the schools? Who shoots up the churches? Who goes to the grocery store and takes all these lives? Insecure men, overlooked men, undervalued men, disrespected men. Now, ironically, most of those are white males. We don't see as many black males in that space. But so here these males are doing this to typically another race a lot of times, and then sometimes to their own, but they're doing it to this group of people, and it's a one-off event where they've taken X amount of lives. It actually becomes different with black men because it's consistent and it's permeating very deep into our own culture, and we're destroying from the inside.
What do you think about this, man? I know there's a lot of work with regards to focusing on adults. I'm not big on converting adults, to tell you the truth, right? Whether it's food or just life. I feel that the resources and energy should be put towards all youth, specifically black boys, because I feel that if you can teach them self-worth, I think if they understand the system and even understand why women treat them that way, they won't go into these dark places. You get what I'm saying? And they'll really work on themselves, because it's kind of rough if you think about it. If you struggle reading, you really can't earn, you look a certain way, you're not really progressive. Then on top of that, you can't get a lady. It's a rough pill to swallow. And I think we need to prevent them from even getting in that spot. And I think like a lot of I'm not sure how to do, I'm still trying to figure out how to do it or assist. But I think a lot of resource needs to be put in developing these young boys to just have that grit, that self-worth, that vision, and understand the system. Because I think a lot of people have a frustration because they don't understand the system that they're in and how to operate in it.